All right. Well, we have a small group right now, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I also thought we'd start with a meditation. So you might hear more people kind of joining in. So let's just work with the sounds of life happening around us, even in this virtual space, as we drop into just a nice grounding practice here. So just 5 minutes in meditation, and I'll keep it mostly quiet with some gentle instruction. So I'm just setting the timer, and you'll hear the tones in just a moment. So sit up nice and tall, however you are. Standing is fine, laying down. And bring your awareness into your body just like it is right now. So you don't have to change anything. Just notice how you're sitting or standing. And see if you could just be with yourself right now, just as you are. Just noticing how things are right now inside. And see if you can really open in a loving way to this body, your body, just as it is. So whatever came up for you, if you're noticing any tension or perhaps discomfort, just welcoming it as part of this experience right now. Maybe noticing your breath or anchoring there. Notice how the breath is being received by the body in this moment. How is the breath breathing in And how is the breath breathing out? And notice now that the body and the breath cannot be separated. Welcoming the tones in. The dissipation of sound just bringing us back into the space. So opening up your eyes when you're ready, coming back into this little circle of community when you're ready. Okay, very good, very good. So I was reading this quote from the Buddha, and I thought it was so interesting, and I just kept chewing on it and chewing on it. And it's just this little tiny quote, and it all it says is, "We live our life on the tip of intention. We live our life on the tip of intention." On the tip of intention. And I've been thinking so much about intention setting, and really getting in touch with the most true, authentic space inside where that intention feels true for you, for each of you. And what does it mean to develop intention? So I wanted to center the practice around that idea that planting and watering seeds of intention is a practice in and of itself. So this is something that we can work on every day, just as we work on our mindfulness practices, just as we exercise our bodies, just as we develop and nurture our interpersonal relationships. Setting this intention and being tuned into how that intention changes, how it develops, how sometimes intentions are met, they turn into manifestation, into reality, into a lived experience. And then how sometimes we change in the midst of these aspirations or intentions that we're setting for ourselves. And the intention then no longer feels true. Sometimes what I find, and I especially notice this in my yoga classes, teaching my students and being in community, that we have very pure intentions for setting the intention. So in other words, we go into these opportunities for growth, whether it's yoga or mindfulness meditation or Tai Chi or Qigong or any of the contemplative practices. And we sit or we take a seat or we stand in Tadasana and we pause for a moment in our bodies, in the breath, and the teacher may recommend take a moment to set an intention. And what 9 out of 10 times I experienced in those situations, not being the teacher, but one of the students, is that I would just settle into this learned experience of being with intention. So quite frequently, the intention would be just on this pattern of repeat. In other words, they were some old thoughts that have just been hanging around. They were thoughts of what intentions should be, but quite often they didn't ring true for what I was bringing into that experience in that very moment. So it's very important when we start kind of digging deeper and looking at it closer, and am I setting an intention that is true, that is aligned, that is authentic for who I am in this very moment and for everything that I'm bringing into my practice right now. So an intention, setting an intention, setting an aspiration, and then of course working towards manifesting that so it's a lived experience, is a practice. And it's something that requires attention and requires a little more effort than sometimes we give it. So today's practice will be about looking a little deeper and feeling into some questions that will be really helpful for you as you start kind of shifting your vantage point on this experience. Okay, so if you don't have a notebook and pen, just take a moment to grab one, anything that's close to you, so you could set it aside next to your mat. And I'm gonna attempt to demonstrate as best I can some of the shapes we'll be working with. So I'll be instructing you how this is going to go is I'll be instructing you on the question. So we'll drop that in as a contemplation to this physical practice. And the reason we are working with the contemplations with the practice layered in is because aspirations, the truest aspirations that are aligned wholeheartedly, are always felt in the body as being true. Always. It's an embodied experience, in other words. So we know in our gut, we feel the truth of the intention that we're setting. And without that experience, without that embodied layer, there's some questions, right? Maybe we just haven't, dug beneath the surface a bit. Maybe we haven't gotten into the root of the matter. I'm not saying that these are outright lies. I'm not saying that there's ill will towards the intentions we might be setting. What I'm saying is we might need to just go a little deeper into clarifying until these answers that come to you feel really embodied. So, on your paper, I'd like you to write the first contemplation, and we'll be going into a practice. So the first contemplation, and then I'll give you instruction on the physical shape we'll be going into, is you are born again every day. You are born again every day. Are you starting well? So in other words, start well. Are you? Are you starting well? And this idea of being born again every day also fits beautifully into the mindfulness meditation practice and this cornerstone of the practice, which is we could always begin again. So every time we come to the practice, we're asked to just come in with freshness and curiosity and this willingness. And there's no reason to be ashamed for not showing up, perhaps. So if the practice is feeling stale, or if the practice has had some open spaces in it, if you haven't gotten on your mat in weeks and you don't know what that feels like anymore, this disconnection, just being honest with yourself, I'm just here to begin again. Okay, here to begin again. So that question again, for those of you that have come in just the last couple of minutes, we are framing some contemplations with a practice. So time to think about these contemplations in an embodied way. And then taking a few minutes after the shape to journal what came up. So what I want you to look for as we go through this first shape with the contemplation, and that first contemplation again is you are born again every day. Are you starting well? So, or how are you starting? Okay. All right. So for the first shape, we're working today firstly into the kidney space. The kidney space is something that we've been talking about in that it's essential for physical, mental, emotional, and energetic well-being. So we're working with this primordial energy and cultivating a balance of this primordial energy in the kidneys called Jing, essential to who we are. Okay, so just dropping into the body. So you're going to open up your feet, come into butterfly shape. I'm sitting on a bolster just to give a little lift under the sit bones and protect the anterior tilt of the pelvis. This is also really good for the low back. So remember, if you're in a space right now that's not conducive to the physical practice, you could always just watch this or tune back in at a later time and watch the recording when you have more space in your day. Okay? So we'll be holding each shape for about 5 minutes. And this first shape has a lot of instruction, of course, because we're just getting into the practice, but we'll keep the flow as we move through. So we'll be holding each shape for 5 minutes. All right. So that question, just take a moment in quiet, close your eyes before you go into the shape, and I'll repeat the contemplation. You are born again every day. Start well. You are born again every day. Start well. And this contemplation, we're dropping it into the mind's eye. And we're attending to the contemplation, but it's not overwhelming the space of the mind. So it's like a whisper. It's like a windy day. And this contemplation is just moving through the mind and down into your body. So the invitation is to draw it in. You are born again every day. Start well. And you could either sit up like I am, or you could just come forward and down. And you could just rest forward and down with your spine rounding and your shoulders relaxing. I'm going to sit up so we could work through this experience together. So how are those words landing inside of you, in your body? You are born again every day. Start well. And we'll stay here for about 2 more minutes. with this contemplation moving through you and really looking to see how the body is working with the contemplation. So there's no clinging to the sensation, there's no pushing away. This practice is asking us to be curious, to wonder, look a little deeper inside and listen. And just a few more breaths here. Just taking a moment, a reminder that transitioning out of these deep shapes is just as important as how we spend the time in them. So moving very slowly, grounding your hands on the floor for support of the spine. You can engage gently in your low belly to protect the low back. And very, very slowly press up to seated. And when you come up, bring your hands to the outside of the knees, just supporting the joint of the knees and bringing the knees back up into center. And you could just fold over your legs for a second, taking rest. Feeling the touch of your arms around your legs and all of the support that is right here. How this tenderness can be expressed towards self. And opening your eyes. Now take your journal and your pen, and I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes so that you can write freely about your experience with that contemplation. So again, the first contemplation is you're born again. You are born again. Every day, start well. And I'd like you to really invite your body to communicate as we write freely and just trust. So there is this embrace of trusting. Those bells are just dropping you into free writing for the next 3 minutes, and we'll keep the space really quiet. And just another minute here. Sometimes it's helpful just to repeat the words. You could even read them out loud to yourself. You're born again every day. Start well. What is the embodiment of those words? Wherever you're at, just place your pen down. Just relax the contemplation from your experience. And we're going to go into the next contemplation. So each of these questions are somewhat provocative, as they will ignite alignment towards this manifestation of the most true intention for this experience, for your life in general, for your relationship, for the reason, kind of shining the light on why you're here and how this experience is going to propel you forward. So just really listening into each question as it's dropped. So the next question, number 2 in your journal, is what seeds are you planting? What seeds are you currently planting? What seeds are you planting? Okay. And for this next shape, we are going to drop into the lungs and heart. Okay. So the next shape that we're going to take is called downward facing puppy. And you could see me on my mat. This is also called melting heart. So there's different names to the yin yoga shapes than what we're familiar with in the more active practices of yoga, because we want to think of them differently. So you're probably more familiar with downward facing puppy, but when we hold this shape at length for a longer period of time in stillness, it's very, very powerful. So in order to come into the shape, I'm coming into a tabletop position, keeping my hips stacked over the knees, and then dropping onto the chest and forearms. So forehead is down, arms are extended, belly should feel open and spacious. Okay, so you could come into your shape. Sometimes it's helpful if that feels like too much. An alternative, a great alternative, is a wide-legged child's pose. And you could always grab a bolster or a firm pillow. A pillow from your sofa is always a good choice. So as an alternative, you could just drape the front body over the bolster and reach the arms long. So whatever shape you choose is best for you. We'll go into a quiet space now for the next 5 minutes. And quietly, or you could even ask yourself this question out loud: what seeds am I planting in the midst of this What seeds am I planting right now? I'm just really embracing stillness in this shape. So resisting any urge to fidget or shift or change the shape. Just being in your body and noticing the breath moving in and out. What seeds are you planting right now in the midst of this? And just 2 more minutes in this shape, dropping the contemplation back in and really paying attention to how the body is absorbing and responding to these words. What seeds are you planting right now? What seeds professionally? What seeds relationally? What seeds for your emotional well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being, spiritual well-being? What seeds? Notice any emotions that are surfacing and just welcoming them in. Noticing that the capacity of the heart is boundless. These emotions can come in like visitors from beyond. And we can invite them in. They might stay a while. Like Rumi says, they may wash our floors clean. And they might leave again like passing visitors. So open the door and let them in. Watch them move through you. And notice you can remain in steadiness at center. Just a few more breaths here. And I'd like you to bring your hips back and down towards your heels. If you need a break in your knees, feel free to make your way to one side and sit up when you're ready. If you'd like to just stay in child's pose and write in your journal freely, you could do that too. So however you're comfortable, I'm going to set the timer now for 3 minutes. So I'd like you to journal about the experience you just had. Where did you feel that question in your body? And what did you find there? What answers did you find there? Or what questions? Sometimes what I find and experience when I'm doing work like this, deep work like this, is that I'll feel overwhelmed with a certain color or image, or I'll be reminded of a story or poem. So if there's an artistic interpretation, write that down, whatever it is that came up to you. It's all relevant. When I started these practices, I used to wonder if I was just making it all up. Like there was a tone that made me feel like I was questioning whether or not what I was experiencing or picking up on was even real. And yes, even that is so relevant. So those imaginings, those longings, those dreamlike states we're in are revealing truths to us. We just sometimes need to look a little deeper. So write it all down. Write it all down. And we just have 1 minute longer. So if you're getting stuck, which is really quite normal when we're working with these questions in the body, especially if you're new to this practice, just ask yourself the question again and just conjure it up. What seeds am I planting right now in the midst of this? What seeds am I planting? And the time is up. So just place the pen or pencil down, place your journal down. Just ending that experience with gratitude. Very good. So we have time for one more contemplation and one more shape. So I'm going to give you a choice. The choice is either practicing Sphinx pose, which is a shape where you're laying down on your belly. So I'll demonstrate it now. So I'm getting on my mat. Just resting on my belly and bringing my elbows and forearms down. Okay, and my legs are extended. If there's any pinchiness in the low back, you could open up the legs and that should resolve the pinchiness there. Additionally, another modification for the shape is to bring the bolster right underneath the chest and resting your elbows and forearms on top of it. Their alternate shape is a little more advanced. So some of you may be familiar with it, others may not. This shape is called saddle pose. So I'm bringing the bolster behind me. I'm using the bolster to support the spine, but notice that I'm not bumping it right up against the sacrum. So it's pushed away from the sacrum, so I'm exposing that deep bend in the lumbar spine. Bringing the big toes together, opening up the knees, and just drop in for a second, bringing your awareness to your ankles. If you're like me and you have bony kind of ankles, you might need an extra blanket underneath them. I would certainly grab one if I was holding the shape for 5 minutes right now. So now additionally, you can scoot the hips forward just slightly. That'll reduce the intensity in the low back. If you're looking for a more intense expression of the shape, don't move the hips forward. Now to drop back onto the bolster, we're coming back and lowering the shoulders and then bringing the arms overhead. Good. So remember, there's 2 opportunities here for practice. One is saddle pose, and the other is Sphinx pose. So I want you to go into that shape. I know you didn't write down the 3rd contemplation yet. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle it in to this quiet space, and then you'll have an opportunity to write it down in the written exercise. So just take a moment to get into your body and settle into the feel of the shape that your body's in, how your breath is moving in and out. How the body is receiving the breath in this shape that you're in. So just really getting into the body. Remember that the breath and the body cannot be separated. So we can attend to the body. We can attend to the breath. And either orientation will bring us deeper into this embodied experience of looking. Just giving a few more moments here just to settle in. And the question is, what is your best intention right now? What is your best intention right now? Just repeat that question to yourself. Feel free to change the word best. What is your best intention right now? Listen in deep. Notice how your body is absorbing that, and notice how your body is responding and what is coming to you. About 2 more minutes right here in this shape. Notice if you start wandering off in distraction, and just come back. Commit to being in your body for the next minute. What is your best intention right now? What is it? And just a few more breaths here. If you're in saddle pose, please come out very carefully by releasing the arms down by your side, grounding your hands, pressing into the floor or mat beneath you, and with your low belly engaged, coming up very slowly, protecting the low back. If you're in Sphinx pose, simply fold all the way down onto your mat and rest on your belly for just a moment. And when you're ready, you could sit up or pull your journal and pen over towards your practice space. And you have 3 minutes to free write. So remember that this is just the tip of the iceberg. So we're unveiling this really deep, aligned, and pure intention. And this is a practice that we could come back to again and again and again. And there's a lot of doorways in. So just free writing on this question. revealing sometimes more questions than answers right now, and that's okay. What is your best intention right now? And there's just one more minute here. So remember that we could come to a space where there's just nothing, there feels like I have nothing else to share, I have nothing else to express. Ask yourself the question again, conjure it up, conjure it up. What is my best intention right now? And you could put that pen down. And if you're comfortable, you can come back to this space with me. So before we end class today, I just wanted to open up for any questions. If you have any questions, you can either type them in, chat them in. You can just turn your camera on and ask me. That's up to you. And of course, if you think of something later on, you could always message me directly through the portal. You could share on the community board. I'd love to see more community sharing there, because I guarantee that any questions you have, somebody else has. And remember, a lot of our students don't participate in the live webinars. They will tune in afterwards. So no question is wrong. No question is a dumb question. I hate that word, but I know it rolls through my mind sometimes if I'm asking questions. So all questions are welcome and relevant. Okay. So I just want to remind each of you that that was a really deep practice, and you may need to just take Shavasana for 5 to 10 minutes. No method, just rest and just kind of let your bones settle into the mat. You could pay attention to the in and out flow of the breath. Go drink a big glass of water and maybe go for a walk outside and get some fresh air. So you might notice that after doing a practice like this, that you'll still be thinking about it later in the day. It might come to you later tonight. When you lay in bed, you might think about it. Just pay attention and see what else comes up, and feel free to come back to your journal and add to it at any time. So on Thursday's practice, we'll be doing a little bit more meditation and pranayama practices, breathing practices. And then we'll also be doing more work with intention setting and rituals, and how do I create ritual in my home practice, and what does that mean, and and how can you establish more of a ritual to your day. Okay, so that's all I have for now. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed the practice today. Namaste. I will see you on Thursday. Thank you.